Welcome to the series on thriving. And today we have our guest, Leah. Leah, welcome.
Thank you, Amy. I'm happy to be here.
So glad you agreed to this. So tell us where you are at in the world, Leah.
Where I'm at in the world currently. So currently I live in Dordrecht in the Netherlands, which is, well, we know, look on a map for the Netherlands, but it's in the I was like, it's tiny. But I live in the southern portion, about 20 minutes. I'm terrible with directions. East of Rotterdam.
I see
So
you're going to your mental map
I
there.
know. What is it? What is to the bottom? The bottom right. I'm terrible with directions.
But you are from, where did you move from?
I'm originally from Oregon. So I was raised in Eastern Oregon, high desert, tiny little town, Baker City, Oregon. Yeah, grew up there, left for university, but came back and started an acupuncture business. And did that, loved it mostly, and was there for 7 years. And then 2020, during the pandemic, I felt really called to leave. Like, and by really called, I was sitting in the living room feeling sorry for myself. Because what am I going to do with my business
Yeah.
when it's face to face? What does this even look like? Because nobody had any answers to anything. And I remember just sitting there and thinking, and I was sitting in the middle of the couch, and I don't typically sit in the middle of the couch, but I was sitting in the middle of the couch and I was like, oh, I need to move to Italy. That's when this whole thing kind of kicked off. So, yeah, that dream started like spring of 2020. We were probably a month into the pandemic. And I actually made the move to Italy 1st of May of 2021.
Wow.
And then 5 months later, moved up here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So before we get into your business, tell me about how did your move relate to your sense of thriving, whether it's about your business, your own health, your just all of it. Yeah, pandemic, here we go.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I had been in between this mindset of I need to learn how to be content. And I hadn't been content in my business since about 3 years in. And so I was always like, okay, but like, how do I need to change my mindset to be content? And it was this constant tension back and forth for me. And really, like a lot of people, the pandemic hit, and I was like, what do I actually want? If I can't do this job this way, what do I want?
Such a good
And
question.
because yeah, and externally, and this was set up a lot of conflict with my family. Externally, I was thriving. I owned my home. My brother lived with me. We had dogs. We traveled all the time. Like I was regularly taking an international trip a year for work and a stateside trip, sometimes for work, mostly just for fun. Like my business was in the six figures. I was as busy as I wanted to be. Things were great. And the pandemic hit, and I was like, no, I don't want any of this. I mean, I wanted my dog, but like, I didn't want to own a house.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to reconfigure my business. I didn't even want my business the way that it had been. And it was so interesting because I was like, on paper, this looks really great.
Yeah.
But like,
People would
so
think
like,
they would judge it
yeah,
as thriving.
absolutely. And internally, it was pretty much dead and burnt out. And that really, I didn't know why I needed to move. Um, I'm also a Scorpio, so as I get more into that, I'm realizing, I blow everything to smithereens and just kind of move on and
Start over.
really, yeah, yeah. And I blew up just about everything when I left. Not in like a toxic way,
Right.
but yeah, nope, nothing to come back to.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really when I started to ask myself the question of what's going to light me up? What's it going to take for me to thrive? Because there again, on paper, I only worked 3 days a week with my acupuncture practice. And truly, it was like 2.5 days. So I had one cushy gig. Like it was phenomenal. And honestly, a lot of my patients were phenomenal patients. But there again, like my insights were just kind of dead with the whole thing. I was very bored. I was very unfulfilled and honestly wasn't thriving. So then it's like, well, what are you going to do if you move? Are you still going to do acupuncture? I'm like, I have no desire to figure out doing acupuncture in the European Union. Like, between the language and the logistics and the legalities, I'm like, no, let's break from that. And so since spring of 2021, it's been like, what's it take for me to thrive? And honestly, rediscovering and in some respects, just discovering for the first time.
Right.
What it is that lights me up and allows me to thrive in this very, very simple life I've created here, really. Yeah.
Very intentionally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And very solitary as well. Like that's been the other thing that's been fascinating to me is seeing other people's projections of, oh, I must be lonely. Oh, I must be, and their aspects that I'm like, I miss my brother. I mean, we lived together for 9 years. You don't live with a roommate for 9 years and not miss them and that closeness and that interaction, right? And so there are aspects like that, but truly having my own space and being fully responsible for it is phenomenal. And I love the fact that my life is as intentionally simple as it is. Even like it's boring. It's absolutely boring. And I love it because it's like
it can be
I have
boring and you can love it.
yes. And that's like, what have you been up to? Well, I don't know. There are weeks where I'd be like, well, I read 3 books today.
Yeah.
That's and I grew up in a household where you needed to physically do something, like accomplish something with your day for it to count.
Yeah.
So that's been another thing about discovering and giving myself permission to be like, if today is a day where you read 3 books, then enjoy the hell out of it.
Right.
Because that's what it takes today for you to thrive.
Yeah.
And so destructuring a lot of the rules that I grew up with and playing around with and allowing them to change on a daily basis, depending on what's going on. It's been
I love that.
interesting.
Yes. And oh gosh. I'm like, oh, I have so many questions. Okay. So you're not doing acupuncture.
Correct.
What you are doing, what has come to you for thriving business-wise is
Holistic health coaching would probably be the closest thing. And I know I've said this to you before, but I have a background, in addition to the acupuncture, background in biochemistry, background in childbirth education and birth work. So originally the desire to do transformational style coaching came out of the birth work space.
okay.
And I realized the value that I was giving my acupuncture patients in the room was in helping them figure out what they can do on a daily basis to help themselves, but also in educating people of like, but do you even know how your body is working now and how it's supposed to be working? Because we don't get that knowledge. In traditional American culture, we don't even get basic knowledge of how our body's supposed to work. So providing people with, one, the education that they need to fill in the gaps for them to understand themselves and how they're working, but also providing them with basically a transformational framework of like, here's what you can do. Here are the tools that you've been missing that you can use if you choose, to make these changes and make them stick. Because that was one of the things that I found that burned me out with acupuncture, is me fixing people. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yes, I can fix your shoulder pain, but if it's your job that's jacking up your shoulder, then we're always going to be chasing our tail. And that was one of the things of like being able to see a solution for people, but not having them on board to do it all. So that's really for me where the coaching came in, because it's like, yeah, let's lay out a framework and then you can pick and choose what you want to do. And I will support you as much or as little on your way. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's a great, making that connection about like, okay, here's how I got burnt out in this successful business that I had. And here's how I can do it differently. Take what it is that is so innate in you.
Yeah.
And and there's more intentionality, do you find, when people are seeking coaching, for example?
Yeah.
And if it's
yeah. And that one of the things that I love to do with my clients now that I didn't really have the opportunity with acupuncture is to really give them options and really leave it in their field. For like, some of them is, you and I can work intensely one-on-one and do this thing, right? You can do these things on your own. And yeah, if you have questions, pop in and I'll answer your questions. Or here's a blueprint. Yeah. Go forth and conquer. And having the ability to offer that to people and to be like, yeah, no, some people don't need the hand holding. Some people want, just an occasional check-in. Some people want everything. And I'm happy to provide it, but also it's more like, no, you need to choose without me influencing you. Because I'm there again, it comes back to, well, are you going to fix it for me? Yeah, no, I didn't break it in the first place.
Yes.
But I can point out these things that I see because that is one of my gifts, right? And it's the same thing of like, are you a plant person? Yeah, I'm a big plant person. And it's the same sort of idea of learning the unique eccentricities of each different plant, of like, how much do you need to give it in order for it to thrive, right? And you can overwater your succulents and just kill them, and you can underwater your ferns and they get mopey and weird. And it's that same sort of like letting people find the balance for themselves, and like, how much water do I need? All right, cool. If you need this much water, I will support you this much. Cool. So
the word that's coming to mind for me is empowering.
Very much.
Yeah.
And because that was one of the things too that I didn't realize in the midst of making this big move, is how empowering it was for other people to watch me. And it's like, well, yeah, that's just me. Yeah. But I had to push myself. And retrospectively, like, oh, I did that. That was pretty amazing. And it is the same thing that I'm giving these clients, right? Of like, you're capable. Watch yourself thrive and grow. Like, yeah, here's what you have in you.
Yeah. And there are the way that you're describing these different ways, somebody is going to thrive more with your coaching in this way. If
Yeah.
they're, hey, I'm going to check in with you daily, for example. Someone
Yeah.
else is going to get some information, go off, put it into action, maybe check in with you weekly or monthly. And,
Yeah.
someone else wants something more specific. And, I feel like that is a human journey of learning how it's okay, to find out, take the time to
Yeah.
go in and see how we each work, how we learn, how we're motivated, and then find the right people that support that, the right tools that support that, and then also know it can shift at any time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing too, that I don't know if we're just less aware of it, or we don't give it the importance that it needs. But I feel like there's a big gap around people realizing what resources they need to actually do the thing. And it's like, creating the time resources that you need to prioritize whatever aspects you want to prioritize. The monetary resources, the support structure. Because honestly, if I didn't have the support structure that I had, I wouldn't still be here doing the things that I'm doing. And all of us have these different amounts of all of these different resources, and some that we aren't aware of. To like pull them forth and be like, actually, you have this resources available to you. What would it look like to use it?
Yeah.
And bringing that awareness as well to people that they don't even know that they have this within them.
Right.
Like, oh, oh,
More
yeah,
empowering, more empowerment.
yeah.
Yes. So, in your journey and for where you're at now, what supports your thriving personally and professionally now in this time and space?
Yeah. So personally, what supports my thriving? Um, Specific connection, which I'm finding is unique to me in a lot of ways. Mainly because I'm the type of person that I'm more introverted than extroverted. But I also need to talk everything out. And you can't do that with just anyone.
It's true.
I mean, I have before, for sure. I have. It has not gone well. But there are those specific people that I go to with specific issues, right? And specific things that I'm like, oh, like I have my friend, and she and I both grew up in like very conservative Christian households. And so we have a similar framework in that way, even though we've moved outside of it a bit. So talking with her about certain things, I've got a mentor that I've worked with for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And she grew up in an agnostic Australian household. So culturally, also very different. And so speaking with her about different things, and then friends that is I'm I'm one of those like quintessential millennials in that I have maybe 3 of my very good friends that I've ever met in person, and the rest have all been online.
Yeah.
And we have fostered those online connections to the point where we can just message each other and be like, hey, can we hop on a call real quick? Because I really need to talk through this thing that just went down. And those specific kinds of relationships have honestly carried me through the past 2 years of dissolving my business and moving across the world. And personally allowed me the space and the time to grow. And I think part of that too is there's no expectation in those relationships. And we give each other the time and the space, and we also support each other mutually. So that has been fascinating to see. Like, oh, this is, and they hands down believe in me. Like there are very few reality checks. Like I grew up being used to. It's just like, wait, but you really think that I can do? They're like, yeah, absolutely. You can do anything you set your mind to. Let's go do it. What do you need from me?
Like, wow.
Okay. Unique. Like it is so unique. And they have helped with my business in a way of like, I think all but one of them are entrepreneurs of some sort. Some of them also have like they're employed for their side hustles or whatever. So watching them be in their businesses as well, because they're in all different industries, from coaching to film to stop motion to, I mean, it runs the gamut. But watching them build their own businesses has also been a huge component of me building mine and doing it in a way that now serves me, that is back to that intention of like, oh, yeah, I did used to do that way. And it also contributed to my burnout. So it's also giving me the time of the space. Like this week, I realized, oh, just because this was part of my acupuncture framework doesn't mean it was bad because I was burnt out on acupuncture. I can use this piece the way that I was doing it.
Nice.
And the opposite with other pieces too. I'm like, oh, that directly contributed to my burnout. So we're not going to go there again. And really go at it with that intentional mindset of like, yeah, what's it going to take for this business to thrive so I don't end up where I was before? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
As you were describing your network of support,
Yeah.
I was thinking about with this newer way of life that we can have more people in our sphere that we may have never actually had physical contact with.
Yeah.
And so it made me think of energetic support.
Yeah.
As you were describing your friends that you've come to know each other and may have never been in one another's physical presence before.
Yep.
And but your energetic, which you can feel no matter where you live in the world, right? And I just think that's something that more and more people are opening to now, especially post-pandemic, of the value and the value and the actual, there is something tangible about connecting with people in whatever way we can, and that our worlds have opened more.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear of the ways that has supported your thriving, and then I'm sure it's reciprocal with your whole sphere of what's the word I'm looking for? I was thinking of a different word besides support, but I'll use it again. Your sphere of support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's fun too, because I've noticed for myself in particular, age is less of a factor.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. And because like a couple of the gals who I'm very good friends with, like, so let me do some quick mental math on myself. So I'll turn 37. And these other gals are, 28 and 25. Right. And I'm like, I would have written you off had we met in any other way, because I'm a millennial and you're like, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever,
We
like,
just kind of have these, like even if we're not aware of.
yeah. And it's so like we would have never met had we not been in this online program together. And it's fascinating to me to be like, oh, where else have I limited myself simply because I was physically in this person's presence? And by design, then also knew more about, their family and their priorities and whatever. And so it's fascinating to see that age has become less of a factor, and even like partner and kid status is less of a factor. And it's a little bit mind-blowing, but kind of cool to see.
Absolutely. I had this vision before the pandemic started, like about 2018, 2019. I was kicking around the idea of knowing I was going to get into coaching. I had my coaching certificate for a lot of years and just dabbled. I was like, yeah, it's going to happen. But I had this vision of somehow, like, I wasn't sure what, but what kept coming to me was having this intergenerational, space. And yeah, it's happening. And it's so
Yep.
cool. And I love how the learning is so, maybe more so than any other time in history, that, the model used to be the learning, the teachers are the older people who teach the younger people. And now, with everything going on, and as fast as technology is shifting, and all these young entrepreneurs and things, like, it is such a mix of who's learning from who and who's open to learning from who. And I love it. I
Yep.
feel like it's so rich.
Yep. It's incredibly rich because, yeah, I think we were probably friends for a year before we found out each other's ages even. It's like, wait, you're how old? Oh, okay. And like, I look back and I'm like, you have taught me so much. But and my older brain is like, there's no way that I can learn that from like a 24 or 23-year-old. Like, no. What do they know?
Yeah.
It's like, well, geez, come on. Like, obviously they know quite a bit because
Yeah.
you've learned a lot from them. And yeah, it's phenomenal to see. They're getting like the sharing of resources. I know about these things. Oh, you know about these things. I want to know them. And yeah, it becomes an incredibly rich environment because of that.
Yes. And very much thriving. Like, that really adds to our collective thriving, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of thriving in the new year, where are you going? Do you have a certain, um, as far as your business and sort of what is available, so that people watching could
Yep.
learn about what you have to offer?
First of all, I love the question of where are you going? Because I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna travel to here because travel is a huge part of my life. But
Yes, and it
so
helps you thrive.
yes. And so I'm glad you narrowed it down to business. So
Well, okay, let's start with
because
that
I'm
though. Where are you going in 2023?
so 2023, I have had Scotland on my list for ages, ages. And for various reasons, I haven't made it up there yet. So that's like at the top of my list. The other place at the top of my list is Tallinn, Estonia. Like I dig these northern countries.
Mhm.
But I've never been to Estonia. I've never been further. Well, okay, I've been to China and Russia back in the day, but from like the European continent, I haven't been east of Prague.
Okay.
So, so yeah, those two places are like,
Cool.
I want to get them done next year, 2023. Um, so business wise, the direction that I'm heading. So I have stepped out of, like, I started my coaching more in the birth space and I've stepped out of that, still heavily in women's health. One of the ways a lot of my clients love kicking off the new year, and I really love supporting them in it, is through making a plan, overall wellness, but specifically centered around getting intolerance testing done, which I realize is just kind of like, but one of the things that I love about it, is when you get a ton of information, through testing. And it's quality stuff, but it also helps you here again, like figure out, okay, what's a tangible way that I can get after and improve my health almost immediately.
Mm.
And I love watching clients put the pieces together, because there will be spots where we get together and it's like there are like 5 different things behind this pattern, this symptom, this, diagnosis. What is it? And one of the things that I love is my clients are so often already doing so much to help themselves out, but sometimes it's not what our body needs. And it takes so much of the guesswork out that we can be like, oh, okay, we can attack it from so many different ways, and really get clear and not have to trial and error a whole bunch. Because the other thing with our health is sometimes it just takes a while to get on top of it. And the more we can shorten that curve, like how much time is it going to take for us to really start making strides? Just generally, the more successful we feel and the faster we can propel ourselves forward, which I love. I love not wasting time. It's awesome. But that's probably the biggest impact thing. And I love starting the year with it because it provides so many more options for people moving forward.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's less of a shot in the dark. I mean, and I really like having clear directions to move towards. I mean, I don't mind muddling around in the ether. That's great. But most of us are looking for results of some sort that are, yeah,
And especially
clarity.
with health, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because honestly, too, most of the time, by the time people find me, they've tried so much else. Yeah. And so we're months, if not years, into this process already. And we need to start getting results. Yeah. And so, like, I don't like to mess around. Let's get you what you need. And yeah, that's one of my favorite ways to go about doing it. But beyond that, just doing the holistic coaching in general. And my big focus is, mainly because of who I am and the kind of people I attract, tend to be centered around women's health. So that's always what I've gravitated towards, is working with women, and specifically in whatever cycle they're in life. So I work with a lot of younger women who are just working on getting their cycles together. I work with a lot of women in the fertility space. And then older women, is like, it's funky when you hit, like, here I say older women, and there are people my age. Oh my, I better check myself. So like your late 30s, 40s, right? Where you're still in that reproductive era, but like things just change. And it's like, what do I even do with this? And so yeah, it's fascinating for me to work with these people and see what they accomplish and where their life takes them and how simple some fixes are and how others you got to kind of investigate and get after it. And then it's like the pieces just go and their entire world changes. So
No,
it
that's
keeps me,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, I can just tell, like, just you describing the journey and the people you work with, and I just hearing the passion in your voice, and I can tell that you thrive by helping others thrive.
Yeah, it's true.
And so the information will be below about all about Leah, what Leah offers, what's going on currently, how to connect with Leah, and even just follow what she does in the world. And I'm so happy to have spent time with you today. And I just
Oh,
feel
me
so
too.
honored to share all of this with the listeners as well. And are there anything that we didn't get to that you feel a burning desire to say?
Is there anything we didn't get to a lot, but that's totally fine.
What should the
Thank
title be
you.
of our next interview series?
Right? Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and allowing me to just share because yeah, I forget how much fun it is even just to talk about this stuff. So it's fun to be drawn out like this, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed all the different ways that we hit on thriving and
Yeah.
all of the the dynamics around that and how we can be more. I just think this conversation has opened more and more post-pandemic.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I wish you the most thriving new year, Leah, and I'll
Thanks.
look forward to seeing your photos of your travels as well. Leah's a
I look
great
forward to
photographer,
hearing
by the way.
it. Aw, thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much.